truth may now officially be out there. A new batch of UFO files have given the world alien fever. The Pentagon releasing a treasure trove of files digging into a bunch of sightings. The release is stirring up speculation with videos, images, and even testimonies.
Yeah, all this new information even includes findings from the Apollo missions.
This comes from cases that the government is calling unresolved, meaning that they can't be explained with certainty.
But we're certain that our next guest will have plenty to say about the new documents. Joining us now, Harvard professor of science and best-selling author Avi Loeb. And Avi, I'm sure you've had time to comb through these files. What, if anything, has caught your eye?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I felt yesterday like a kid in a candy store in some sense, because, science should be driven by evidence. It's like a detective story. And it looks like the government collected for decades documents, information, testimonies, and images, including videos of unusual objects that the Pentagon, the intelligence agencies cannot figure out. And it's a mystery what some of these objects are. It's probably a mixed bag. Some of them are human-made, but then it's a question of national security. Are we unable to figure out what kind of technologies the adversarial nations are using against us? And that is a very serious matter. And very serious people within government over the years talked about it, also within the intelligence agencies. So the importance of this release is primarily psychological. It brings this subject to the mainstream of discussion, both publicly but also within science. And of course, if it turns out that we are being visited by some extraterrestrial technological probes, that would be the biggest discovery ever made in the history of science. And so we should look carefully into it. And that's what I'm doing, leading the Galileo project. We have 3 observatories monitoring the sky using artificial intelligence to figure out things. In terms of the information that was released, we looked at it yesterday with my team. There is no one particular object that seems to be beyond any reasonable doubt extraterrestrial. But this is simply because the information is incomplete. Some information was redacted. For example, there was also the Apollo images of the moon that showed lights above the lunar surface. But we know that such flashes of light can occur from impacts by asteroids. In fact, the Artemis 2 astronauts recorded 6 flashes when they flew near the moon last month. So it's not clear that we're dealing, in the case of the moon, with anything that is not natural, because these thousands of images taken by the astronauts didn't show anything orbiting the moon. So all in all, I think this is really the first batch. There will be additional ones in the coming months. And then the next one should be particularly interesting because Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna requested 46 videos from the Pentagon. And they were not included in this batch, but should be included in the next one. And we're just waiting to see more data. The best is yet to come, because the better data is more scrutinized by the bureaucracy of declassification. So my hope is in the future it will get even more interesting.
This is absolutely fascinating, just the findings that are being released. Does this give us any sort of positioning on if extraterrestrial life could be of existence?
Well, let me start with the idea that we're probably not at the top of the food chain, because there are 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy alone, and there are about 100 billion galaxies like it in the observable volume of the universe. So assuming that we are the most accomplished civilization that ever lived, that Elon Musk was the most accomplished space entrepreneur since the Big Bang, is really arrogant. What we should do to figure out who our neighbors are is look around us. And if there are objects that look unfamiliar, that appear to be technological, that would actually educate us about capabilities that we don't have. So it's very exciting to look at such evidence, and I salute President Trump for taking the initiative on releasing it. And I'm looking forward to additional data. Obviously, nowadays, there are sensors that are much more sensitive than those that were employed decades ago. The question is, what do they show? What are these satellites that are monitoring the Earth showing? And of course, that data is more sensitive because these are classified sensors being used right now. But all in all, I'm very much excited to help government figure out what these objects are, including taking more data as the Galileo project is doing.
You mentioned that we aren't at the top of the food chain. That might be a little bit unsettling for some folks to hear at home. And with the release of these files, what should the average person take away from all of this?
That life can be interesting if you're driven by curiosity, if you don't pretend to be the adult in the room that knows the answer in advance. And actually, that's what science is all about, being curious. But you don't find this curiosity in many adults because they don't take risks. They prefer to believe in things that are already known rather than imagine that there are important things that we don't know. But, you know, what I learned throughout my career, which spans about half a century in physics, is that our knowledge is an island in an ocean of ignorance. You know, we don't even know what 95% of the universe is made of. We call it dark stuff, you know, dark matter, dark energy. So there is a lot for us to learn, not to speak about that. The question, are we alone, is the most romantic question in science. You know, just like in a blind date, we just don't know who the dating partner is. There is a possibility that we'll be friendly, but there is also a possibility that the dating partner on a blind date would be a serial killer. And so we need to check what is out there rather than bury our head in the sand and say we don't want to look out.
Well, dovetailing off of that, if, in your opinion, if we aren't at the top of the food chain, should we be concerned as a civilization?
Well, I think it will bring us to a better place, just like President Reagan said, because we are all in the same boat, all humans. Right now, if you look around, you listen to the news, we're engaged in a lot of conflicts with each other on this rock that we were born on. And that's a very limited view, because if we realize that we have a neighbor, it's just like someone knocking on the front door of your home. Suddenly, all the loud arguments within your family quiet down because you realize there is someone else out there. And so I expect that if we do find that we have a neighbor, well, first of all, we will change our priorities. Instead of investing $2.4 trillion in military budgets, maybe we'll spend some comparable amounts of money on space exploration. Because if someone is visiting us, well, first of all, we should protect the planet. This is planet protection as a matter of any risk that might come from an alien technology. But secondly, we might want to visit the backyard of the senders if they visit our backyard. And all in all, I think it will inspire us to learn about new science, new technology that we don't possess right now, because, you know, we just have 1 century of modern science and technology. And imagine what is possible within 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. You know, the age of the universe is 13.8 billion years. And the sun was formed only in the last 1/3 of cosmic history. So we are late to the cosmic party. It takes the Voyager spacecraft, you know, less than 1 billion years to cross the entire galaxy. So they could have arrived here before before humanity even existed. And we just need to learn. You know, it's a learning experience of who is in our neighborhood, rather than assume that we are the best and that ever existed. You know, we thought that we are at the center of the universe. That's definitely not true. The Vatican admitted that in 1992.
All fascinating stuff. I think you bring up some great points, and we appreciate your time to chat with us here this morning. That's Avi Loeb, author and professor at Harvard University. We appreciate it, my friend, and keep searching for answers. We all appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much, and you will hear if we find something.
I'm sure we will, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully get to check back in with him if we do.
doubt.
Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
It really is. I love what he said about being curious, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he brings up a good point. We need to collect more data.
Absolutely.
Right? We absolutely have to, and just be open to what's out there, so to speak.
I love the transparency,
Right.
though, that we're seeing with finally getting information on, you know, the
100%.
facts that we've heard about for generations.
Yes, for sure.